Right, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for your time this afternoon. We're here to demonstrate Sage Intacct for you. I have a very short presentation to run through. The idea is just to introduce who we are as a Sage business partner, really what gives us the right to talk about Sage Intacct. Very high level overview of Sage Intacct. And then I just want to get you over to my colleague Hamza as quickly as possible. So please don't be alarmed. It's not a death by PowerPoint on a Wednesday afternoon by any means. In terms of introduction, so I'm Rory, I'm a sales consultant with Vision 33. My role primarily is to work with new prospective clients and really sort of understand challenges that they have with their current finance system and the impacts that those challenges sort of bring to them, to themselves as users, but also to the organization as a whole, and really to sort of ensure that Intacct is a good fit and it's going to alleviate those challenges and impact. And then, as part of that process, once prospective clients have signed with us in Sage Intacct, I then hand you over to the delivery team, which Hamza is a part of. So Hamza looks after our delivery team in the UK and is responsible for managing the projects and the consultants associated to the implementations. But then I would also work alongside sort of the account management, as would Hamza as well, once the projects have gone live. Now, in terms of who we are Vision 33. We are the largest Sage Intacct partner globally. It is a partnership at the end of the day. It's much more than just support and implementation. We do see this as a partnership from the get-go, and it's a journey. So although Hamza works as a delivery manager within the implementation team, he also supports our new clients as well. We are headquartered in Canada, but with offices in the US and Canada. So we have what is referred to as a central delivery team, but there is localized consultants in each of these countries. So a huge amount of experience and knowledge is really brought to the table when it comes to implementations. And I can see from today, we've got a huge array of different types of sort of organizations joining us from, charities, sort of consultancy sort of based firms, software companies. We have huge amounts of experience in all of these sort of sectors. And I think what's important about this, and this is just some examples of the customers that we work with, is that when we sit with you to do the implementation, and of course we will configure it accordingly to yourselves as users and the requirements of your business, but the team will approach it from a consultative perspective in the sense that if they've seen something work well elsewhere, whether it is in the same sort of sector as yourselves or differently, they will apply that knowledge. So there's a lot of experience that you gain from working with the team. And a lot of our Intacct consultants, if not all of them, are, either accountants, qualified to a certain degree, but for the most part have actually worked in finance teams. So I think why that's important is that there is that knowledge of actual, finance application, particularly when it comes to implementing a finance solution. And this is really where Intacct shines, because the thing that I like to mention here is that it's not an ERP. There is a very clear distinction between a best-of-breed finance system and an ERP. So for starters, Sage Intacct is what we refer to as a modular-based system, in the sense that we work with you in the sales process to identify the modules that you need from day one, and then working with your account manager as your requirements grow, as your business grows, Intacct will grow with you. It is designed to be a scalable solution. So whether your needs are that you need to start expanding either domestically or globally, Intacct is able to handle that through the consolidations module it provides, multi-currency. So you really only pay for what you need and then just add on the various enhancements as and when it becomes necessary, as opposed to buying something where you pay a large sum of money yearly and you're really only using, say, 20% of it, just the financials module. Intacct is a native cloud solution. Why that's important is because it was built in the cloud. It leverages modern technologies. It's not one of these solutions that has recently made the jump to the cloud, but it's had to sacrifice functionality in order to do so. And you still have to sometimes access, a desktop version of it to get to, the more kind of granularity that you were used to. As long as you have an internet-enabled device and a web browser, you can access Sage Intacct. The other clear distinction with Sage Intacct amongst other systems is that it's a dimensional accounting solution. I'm going to let Hamza sort of walk through what that means, but essentially you move away from that segmented chart of accounts and your dimensions are effectively tagged at a transactional level and provide really clearer reporting in a real-time sense for you as well. The other key note here is that Sage Intacct has specialized micro verticals. And what I mean by that is that there are a number of sectors that it has been designed to work very well in. in the sense of, reports, terminology. There's even bespoke modules that we can only sell based on the type of organization that you are. So a not-for-profit sector, for example, have fund tracking, for example, that we could only, provide to a charity. Likewise, for SaaS organizations, there is, a separate set of reports built around tracking, things like ARR, monthly, revenue, churn, stuff like that. But likewise, with general business, professional services, there's project accounting, being able to do things like timesheets and expenses, and being able to bill either indirect or direct costs back to a project and set up billing schedules. And that's really part of my role, is to identify these requirements for you and ensure that you have them from day one. And Intacct is not just a solution with multi-entity in mind. If you are, with us today and you are just a single entity, that's absolutely fine. Intacct has been built and designed for single entities as well. But the key takeaway here is that, as I said earlier, if there are plans for your organization business to grow, again, whether that's, domestically or internationally, Intacct can handle that. And if you are already a multi-entity organization, again, Intacct is more than suited for you. Again, I'm just going to sort of demonstrate the multi-entity and the consolidation capabilities of the system. But, it has book accounting, multi-currency, and even tax as well, depending on where each of your entities operate. And then sort of lastly, we have our own in-house integration tool, which is Saltbox. Effectively, what it does is plugs Intacct into any of your other systems that you have within your ecosystem. Really, the idea is to get away from having different data silos where you're then having to manually import data from those different systems, most of the time into Excel, do the reconciliations in Excel, and then, post a journal into your finance system, which for the most part, it's a lot of work. So Saltbox, really, we sit with you and understand the mappings, and then Saltbox just works seamlessly behind the scenes. You never have to touch it. We set it up so that data is flowing from Intacct, and your CRM or your e-commerce platform, your billing solution, let's say, whatever it is that you guys have. We have over 30 plus industry connectors, and we're actually the strategic integration partner for Sage directly. And what that means is that they come to us through our channel network for their integration requirements. So that's enough from me. I'm going to hand over to Hamza, and we'll stop sharing my screen.
Awesome. Thanks, Rory. All right, let's just build my screen here. Fab. So, as Rory mentioned, today I'm going to be taking you guys through a little demo of Sage Intacct and talking through some of the nice key high-level bits and bobs that we've got available in the system. So, I'm going to be working in this demo environment today, and hopefully you guys can all see my screen there. This environment specifically is a multi-entity, multi-currency environment. And as you can see at the top there, I've got entities in all different countries there. So the USA, UK, Australia, South Africa, etc. So my reporting currency in this environment is USD, but equally it could be GBP, any other currency in the world that you needed it to be. And I'm going to start us off on this dashboard here at the top level, which gives us an overarching view on all of the different entities that I've got in my system. So from this dashboard here, this is one that I built, which could be used for a CFO, and it gives you like a sort of global view there. And straight away at the top, you can see that I've got a nice graph running across the top there that shows me my revenue, total costs, net income in different colors as well. Now, everything on this dashboard that you see here is, of course, drillable. So you can drill into any area on this and hover over any area, and that gives you some details as to what the actual figure is. And if you drilled into it, it would give you a bit of a breakdown as to where those numbers come from and how they're actually made up in the back end. Now, Intacct really focuses on giving you a lot of dimensional capabilities. Dimensions may be a new concept to you if you haven't worked with a dimensional system before. So we are going to come on to what dimensions are and how they're used in Intacct and how best to use them. And there's no right or wrong way to use those dimensions. So in this environment, I've set them up in a way I think gives a really, really good overview as to what they are and how they might be used in the company. So yeah, carrying on this dashboard, what I've done is basically went in and added a bunch of these performance cards, as you can see. And again, this gives me a really, really good high-level overview in a consolidated fashion where I can see all of my different entities rolled up into the same currency and giving me the figure for a certain period. So here we can see, for example, we've got total revenue, we've got revenue for a certain area, for services area, we've got our labor costs, our operating expenses, a couple of the graphs here as well, so we can actually see our revenue by the different locations that we've got. And location actually doubles up as a dimension, which can be used for reporting purposes. So you can see here, I'm actually able to run a revenue report, but then really split that out by different locations in the system. So here I've got USA, USA2, UK, the holding company, South Africa, etc. And I'm able to see in each one what the actual revenue was for each company. And of course, again, drillable. So if I wanted to hover over USA2 and I see here that their revenue was $3 million in this example, if I clicked on it, it would actually pop out with the detail of how that $3 million is made up. So I'll just pop it over here for us. And you can see there the report, zoom in a tad. This is the report for that. And you can see all the different locations across the top. There's our $3 million figure. So I can click into that and that would pop in again further into detail, which I'll put over here, and show us where that $3 million is coming from. So you can see all of the different entries that have gone in. This is obviously a consolidated entry, but if you didn't use consolidations or you're just a UK company with just a single entity or just a couple of entities, this all still works the exact same. It's just, it works for your two different entities in GBP. So it's a really nice way of starting at a sort of higher level overview and then quickly drilling into different areas in the system and getting the information that you want really, really quickly. For someone like a CEO or a CFO, this is amazing because then they don't have to go looking in the system, running loads of different reports to get the numbers that they want. So we can just set this up with you during your implementation, and then it's just there ready to go. Alrighty, so over here on the right-hand side, this is where we start to look a little bit more at dimension. So as I mentioned, location is one of the dimensions that you've got. Department is another dimension that you have available in the system. All the dimensions in the system can be renamed to suit your business. So if you're an NFP, you might want to see things like fund or restricted funds or grants or anything along those lines. If you're a service industry company, you might want to see things like sales and admin and services, just like I do in this company here. Or again, there's no right way or no wrong way to use these. You can categorize those dimensions exactly how you want based on your company. And again, as part of your implementation, it's very much a sort of collaborative approach with us in the sense that we'll take you through, understand your company, and then make a suggestion on what we think you should be using these different dimensions for. Alrighty, so over here again on my departments area, I've got a little graph which shows me my operating expense by department. I've got a handful of different departments in my company. So I've got marketing, IT, sales, services, and admin. And I can see that my admin guys or my admin department has actually logged quite a lot of operating expense. So if I click on it, it actually pulls out that piece of the pie chart and pops out the report for me to be able to have a look at and see what that number is made up of. All right, just in the same way the other one is. We'll not look at that, we'll gloss over it, but you guys hopefully get the gist of what's going on this dashboard. Alrighty, again, carries on there. I've got a handful of different things. Now, this is really good for a CEO or a CFO, as I mentioned, but if you are a little bit more in the weeds and you're looking at a specific subject matter within the company itself, so let's say, for example, you're an accounts receivable manager and you're just looking at the AR and you're only interested in things to do with accounts receivable, we can make any different dashboards that you need. So you can see over here on my dashboards list, I've got loads of different types of dashboards. So I've got ones for AR, AP, I've got ones for employees, for project managers, if you're doing project-based work, etc., etc. And an AR one might look like this. So in this accounts receivable dashboard here, you're able to see what your AR balance is this month. If it's gone up, it goes red. If it's gone down, it'll go green. Again, just to reflect how well you're doing. Your intercompany receivable balances and any disputed invoices, which you can then get detail on down in these little different reports that we've got, so we can see all our different reports going in. I've also got some quick access things on the left here. So again, you could use this as your sort of main starting point and then just pivot into different areas of the system just from here. So you don't even need to go into anywhere else in the system that. Okie doke. So really, really good and powerful way of sort of running around the system, getting all the detail you want, multiple different reports on the same page, really being able to leverage all that different data that's happening in the back end. These dashboards are all live as well. So all the reporting in Intacct is live, meaning if you're looking at a report and someone does a transaction in the background, it will immediately update to reflect those numbers. Okie doke. Now, let's drill onto our dimensions a little bit more and just try and understand them and how you may use them. So back up at my top level here in my company, Hamza Stationery Shop, I've got a handful of different dimensions set up, which we can see here under cross-company dimensions. So I've got locations and departments, as I mentioned. Employees doubles up as a dimension. Contract, again, that's a dimension that appears with the certain subscriptions. So if you're going with projects module, you get the project dimension. If you go with the contracts module, you get the contracts dimension. If you go with the inventory module, you get the warehouse dimension, and so on and so on. But you get a load of them straight out the box, which we can see here, some of them. And this one at the top there, sales type, is one that I've actually renamed in the system. So that one is called class originally, but you can rename that and any other dimension in the system to suit how you want to work. So if we pop into sales types, we can see here, I've got a couple of different examples of sales types set up. All right. So you could use it to do things like service line 1, service line 2. I've also got small business, mid-sized business. I've got enterprise. I've got restricted fund and restricted fund if you're an NFP. Again, a couple of different examples there to show you how you may use this, and you can use it in whichever way you want to, really. So absolutely up to you. And it's quite flexible when it comes to how you use this. If you did want to add additional, you can just do that on the fly and they'll ready to go straight away in the system. And how these actually come into play later on in reports is really, really powerful. So we'll come on to look at those. But for now, let's jump over and post some transactions, and then we can go back and look at how that appears on a report. So I'm going to jump over into my entity, and I'm going to use my United Kingdom entity for today's examples, or for today's demo. And we'll drop into our entity here, into the UK, and I am going to do a real simple accounts receivable sales invoice. So I'm going to jump over to AR and over to my AR sales invoices. And here's my list of accounts receivable sales invoices. Nice and simple. I could click edit or view on any of these invoices and have a look at what's going on or change them. Or I could go ahead and add a new one up at the top here. So I'm going to click on add. And again, everything is as you would expect to see in a normal accounting system. There's nothing too crazy or strenuous about adding an AR sales invoice in the system. So I'm just going to search for a customer. Let's go with Hamza Stationery Shop. All right. And in the description, I'm just going to put in 100 pack of pencils. You can add things like a reference, a message. You could put an attachment in if you'd like as well. You can add as many attachments as you need to a specific invoice. There's no upper limit on how many, and there's no upper limit on what type of file you can add to. So I've got things like Excel files in there, PDFs, Word documents, anything you want really, you can add into the system. All right. Now I'm going to go ahead and select a term. So we'll do due upon receipt. And again, if you do opt for the multi-currency functionality, you're able to transact in any currency in the world. So I've got a list of currencies set up here already. It's not an extensive list, but again, you can set up any currency you need. So I'm going to keep this super simple for today. I'm going to use the GBP currency. If I was to use a different currency though, Intacct uses something called the Intacct daily rate, which is a live rate pulled from oanda.com, which is a very reputable exchange rate website, so which you can have a look at as well. And it's, again, like I say, it's a live rate. So if you were to go with USD, for example, you can see immediately it changes to reflect the exchange rate between the base currency of my company and the currency I want to do the transaction in. All right, but again, as I said, let's keep it simple. We'll go with GBP. Then I just do my entries. So I'm going to go in and select a revenue code. Here's my chart of accounts. So typically in a system, you would select your nominal code. You would put in the transaction amount, so let's say £1,000, and you would select your tax details, which again, Intacct is fully compliant with UK VAT. It's got MTD functionality as well, and it can also work in any other tax jurisdiction across the globe, including the US. So we can set taxes up for anything. But in this entity, I've got UK VAT set up, which is what I need. And we're going to go with UK sale of goods standard rate, which is 3%. And typically you would just press post. Now what Intacct seeks to do, again with those dimensions, is bring in things like department, location, class, project, and so on to really help you categorize these transactions into certain different buckets. So I could say, right, yes, this goes into the revenue services GL code or nominal code, however you prefer to call it, but it also goes into a specific department, and that department might be services, all right? As well as that, it also falls into a specific class, and that class might be service line 1, all right? And again, keep going with that. You could go with a project. If I click on this drop down, you can see how many dimensions I've actually got that I could categorize this transaction using. And that really gives you that granularity, which you can then leverage when it comes to reporting, because you can really slice and dice the data to see where your money's being made and where it's being lost, which we're going to actually look at in a second as well. So in this example, I've said I'm selling, sorry, 100 pack of pencils. That revenue falls into this GL code. It also falls into this sales type and this department and this location, and it's going in with UK sale of goods standard rate, 20%. I'm happy with that, and then I'm going to go ahead and hit post. All right. Once that's in, you can see it there at the top. It's in for £1,200. I think it's that one there actually. Yeah, that one third one down. These ones are future dated and it's sorted by date. So here's my invoice that I can see. I could actually click on view and go back into it if I wanted to. And I can see what's going on here. It's just my normal invoice that I've seen. From this system, I can go ahead and print it and email it straight away if I wanted to. So over here, I've got print or email. I could click on that. And if I've got the customer's email in the system, I could just click on email. The customer's email would populate in, and then I can just click OK, and that would fire straight out to the customer. If I just wanted to take a look at what it looks like, I could press preview PDF. This is just a basic Intacct template, but again, we can make these as bespoke as you guys need in your company. There's really no upper limit, and these are made in Word. So as long as we can make it in Word, the document template, we can put it in Intacct, which is great. But yeah, here's our template, which we could send straight out if we needed to. Alrighty. Now that transaction's gone in, how does that look when it comes to reports? So let's pop over to the report center. And the report center that you get with Intacct, again, is extensive. So you get a whole bunch of reports straight out of the box. I think it's somewhere upwards of about 120 reports straight out. So you get various different types of balance sheets, various different types of profit and losses. You've got things like your cash flow statements and financial ratios and profitability and all that sort of fancy stuff. But the one we're just going to look at, keep it nice and simple, we are going to run a profit and loss detail. All right. So I'm going to click on my profit and loss detail, and I'm going to run it as of today and hit OK. And when I run that, I should be able to see my transactions that have gone in a real simple format. So here's an example of a profit and loss. This is a very basic looking profit and loss, but we're going to chop and change this in a second, right? And at the bottom there, you get your net income figure, which again, everything in blue is drillable. So if you wanted to look at this meals and entertainment here, it says £50. If you thought, oh, hang on a sec, that shouldn't be in there, or we shouldn't have spent any money on meals and entertainment this year, you could click on that, and that would bring out the report. You just pop it over here. That would bring out the report that shows you where that number comes from. So it looks like it was actually logged as expenses within this location, within this department, within this project. And again, if I wanted more details, I can carry on drilling through. So I could click on that, and that would carry on drilling through and show me the originating journal entry. I could carry on going if I wanted to, and so on and so on. Okie doke. But yeah, all from that profit and loss, you're able to drill in and chop in and have a look at what's going on. Now, this is great, but it's just a super simple profit and loss. Let's say I want to see something in a little bit more depth, right? That's where you can start to really leverage your different dimensions in the system. Now, along with the system, you'll get, as I mentioned, various different types of profit and losses. One of those profit and losses is going to be by department, also by class or by location. So if I was to run a profit and loss by department instead, and let's run this out of today, press OK. What we'll actually do in the system is the system will take your profit and loss report, but split it out by the different departments that you've got in your system where there's data. So we've got our marketing department, our sales department, and our services department. And we can see all of our different account groups on the left. And you could bring in, again, GL codes if you wanted to see those. But I can expand this section out. And I'm able to see that £2,000 was logged into the services department under revenue services. Again, I could drill into that if I wanted to. So I could click onto there and drill in and see what that's made up of. So let's bring that report over here. Awesome. And then we're able to see all the transactions that have gone in, and including the one we're looking at today. So that's the one I've just logged, invoices there. And we can see that £1,000 that I've just logged in there. Okay, and that's living within revenue services, but it's categorized by that department location. So what I'm doing here is I'm leveraging the departments to be able to see where that revenue has actually gone in my company. Now, I also logged it by class. So if I wanted to see it by class, I could click on the profit and loss detail by class and run this as of today. and press OK. And what I'll actually get here is all of my classes along the top with year-ending figures along the bottom, and all of my GL codes and my net income at the bottom. And I know I logged mine into, it might have been service line 1. I can't remember, one or the other, but service line 1, and that will fall into this figure for that, which again I can drill into and see. So in this manner, you're able to really slice and dice your data up and look at it from loads of different angles rather than just looking at a GL code and just seeing loads of transactions in there, which don't really mean much until you start looking at descriptions and things like that. So this really gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of categorizing all your transactions that are going in. Okie dokie. Brilliant. Now, let's say, for example, we'll pop back up to the top level for a sec and just zoom out here. And let's go back to our report center. Now, let's say, for example, you wanted to edit one of these reports to make it a bit more suitable to the way your company works. Intacct comes with 2 financial report writers. So you get a financial report writer and a custom report writer, both of which you'll be given full training on as part of your implementation. And as part of that, we show you how to chop and change reports, how to make new ones, and how to edit and adjust them really quick. So that original report that I ran, that profit and loss detail, if we go ahead and run that, let's just run it for our United Kingdom location, and I'll just leave it with that date. We're able to see in here that we've got our P&L, but we've got at the top, we've got year ending 2019, we've got year ending prior year, so that's 2018, and then we've got year ending for the budget, so that's our budget column, which is great. But what I want to see instead is I want to see a month-on-month comparison in my P&L. So how would I do that? Super simple. What I would do is edit my report to begin with. So let's edit that. And I would go into my columns, and it's really, really nice and easy to use. As you can see, you've got nice tabs along the side there. You've got your columns along here. And we can see, here's my first column, which is an actual column for the current year. There's my actual column for the prior year. And there's my budget column for my budget. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to delete this prior year column because I'm not too bothered about it. And I'm going to delete my budget column because, again, I don't really need that right now. But what I do want to see is my current year, but I want to see it month on month. So I can actually use this expand by feature to expand this by a certain time period. I'm going to say expand by month and hit set. Then I can hit save and done. Alrighty. Now when I run this report again, so let's go ahead and run that report again on the list here, profit and loss detail. And we'll run it again for our UK location and press OK. What we should now be able to see is the report has immediately changed to show me a month-on-month comparison across the full year for the full 12-month period. Okey-doke, including at the bottom there, we've got all of our net income figures for each month. All right, all drillable if you needed to. Okay, so super simple and easy to change these reports and mess around with them as you've just seen me do. So from here, let's pivot and go back to our entity. Alrighty, now another really good module that I like to demo in these demos here is revenue recognition. Now, a lot of companies these days use revenue recognition to recognize revenue or amortize expenses over a certain period. If it's a sort of contract or if it's a subscription or something along those lines, for whatever reason you might need to recognize revenue, you can do that with a module in Intacct. Now, typically and traditionally, what you have to do is come up with a schedule outside of Intacct, maybe in sort of a Excel document or something like that. And then every month you have to journal out of deferred revenue into the respective revenue codes. What you can do in Intacct with the revenue recognition module is do it all in the system. And it's super easy to do. So I'm just going to add a brand new invoice and I'm going to make this a RevRec invoice. So I'm going to say, right, new invoice. I'm going to say 100 pencils with RevRec. All right. And we're going to do a due upon receipt term. We're going to do it into the same GL code. I'm going to say it's for £1,200. I'm gonna skip sales type, but I'm gonna put it into the sales department. Okie doke. And I'm gonna use my 20% VAT. Now, before I press post, I need to tell the system that this is a RevRec invoice, and I want the system to put this money, instead of putting it into revenue straight away, I want you to put it into deferred revenue and then release it month on month for the next 12 months into revenue. So how I could do that is click on the show details drop down. And under my RevRec template, I'm just going to select straight line 12 months. The deferred RevRec account automatically populates, which is great. I want you to start recognizing revenue from the 1st of December. And I don't need to put an end date in because it knows that it's 12 months, which is great. And then once I'm happy, I can go ahead and press post. What the system will now do is instead of sending the money to revenue services GL code, it's going to redirect it into the deferred revenue account. So if we go back in to the invoice and have a look at our schedule here, so if I click view schedule, all right, in this, we're able to see that the system has generated a revenue recognition schedule for us, which has 12 equal postings month on month for the same equal amount, £100, until that full £1,200 is fully recognized. And it's going to do that on its own automatically for me and never need to think about this again. Once it gets to the end of that 12-month period, it'll stop on its own. Okie doke. If I ever needed to hold or terminate or edit any of the schedule, I'm able to do that as well. And again, if you need to credit it and recalculate or reallocate what's left, you can do that as well. So plenty of functionality in there with the RevRec module. A really, really nice tool to have in there. Alrighty, so happy days. Coming out of that, let's jump onto the flip side of this coin, which is accounts payable or purchasing. Now, rather than just show you the accounts payable module, I'm going to show you purchasing, which shows a nice workflow of a purchase order system or a P2P system, or however you like to think of that. Procure to pay. I mean, loads of different names for it, but I like to just call it purchasing or purchase workflow. All right. Now, in this environment here, I'll zoom out a tad. I do have a lot of workflow set up because, again, it's a demo environment, but we're just going to go with a real simple workflow in here, which goes purchase requisition. We're going to start with the purchase requisition. That's going to go off for an approval. Once it's approved, it's going to come back, and then I'm going to convert that purchase requisition straight down here to a purchase order. All right. If I wanted another approval, I could have one. Otherwise, I could go straight to a fulfillment. If I didn't need to do a fulfillment, I could go straight down to a supplier invoice. If I did do a fulfillment though, I could then from that fulfillment go to a supplier invoice. For whatever reason, if I need to credit or return something, I've got a return and a purchasing debit memo or a credit note, as we like to call them in the UK. Okie doke. So that's, I guess, a real simple example of what a workflow would look like. And I'm just going to run through one that I set up earlier so you guys can see how it would look. The data entry screens look very similar. So the example I'm going to use is this one here where I purchased a new laptop. So what I did was my employee in this situation went into the system and raised the new purchase requisition because they need a new laptop. They added an attachment, which I could click on the paperclip and I could see what the attachment is if I wanted to. Scroll down here and they said, right, this is the item, this is the department, I only need one of them and it's going to cost £1,000. Yep. They then pressed submit and that went off for an approval. If we look at the approval history, you can see here that it hit my approval barrier, and I have a 2-level approval barrier set up, but you can have a 1, 2, 3, up to 6 levels of approvals if you needed. And they can be based on departments, they can be based on value, they can be based on the supplier, they can be based on the person entering them. Loads of different ways you can set those approvals up, as comprehensive as you need. And in here, I had a user level approval set up. So it went off to my approver, Emma. She approved it. And then it hit a value approval because it was over a certain threshold. And one of my value approvers needed to approve that. All right. I obviously approved both of those. So I went ahead and said, happy with that. You can go ahead and get that laptop ordered. Then my finance team converted that requisition to a purchase order. So if you pop over to purchase orders, here's my purchase order now. So if I click on view, and what the system will do is it will bring through everything from the requisition. So you don't need to retype anything, which is amazing. And you can see it's converted from that purchase requisition we just looked at. Everything comes through the same. Your purchase order gets generated. If you needed another approval, you can get one. If you don't need one, it's all done. And then from the system, again, if you wanted to email this straight out to the supplier, you're more than welcome to send this straight out. Okie doke. Once that purchase order has been fulfilled, I converted my purchase order to a fulfillment. No, I didn't. I converted it straight over to an invoice. I didn't need a fulfillment. So that went straight over to invoice. And then at my invoice, the only thing that I added, because everything again pulls over from the purchase order, the only thing I added was some tax. I need some tax on an invoice, of course. And I pressed post, and that's it. And that invoice is now ready for payment. Okie doke. So that is an end-to-end workflow, an example workflow of a purchase order system that you might use in Intacct. Really, really simple, but it can be as comprehensive as you need it to be with as many steps as you need it to have, which again, you can see in the complexity of my workflows that I've got set up here. Okie doke, I've got inventory workflows and various other ones as well. Alrighty. Cool stuff. So that's sort of more stuff right in the weeds there, but let's come back out and go back up to the top level and have a look at, again, some overarching stuff. So you've gotten to the end of the month, you've got a couple of different entities and multiple different currencies in your company, and you now want to do some consolidated reporting to see how you've done, right? You could use one of those dashboards that we looked at the start of the demo, or you could run any other report in the system here in a consolidated fashion. In order to do any of that, though, first, we have to run a consolidation. Now, with the consolidation module that you can add on to Intacct, it becomes real simple to run consolidations. So the first thing we do is we set up a book, and we only need to do this once, and we do it as part of implementation. Alrighty, and you can set up as many books as you need, depending on how many entities you've got. But you can, in this example, I've got one here set up that's called Global GBP. And in this book, I've basically said, I want to take all of my entities and consolidate them all into GBP. For anything that's in a different currency, I want you to translate the balance sheet accounts using the ending spot rate, and I want you to translate the income statement accounts using the weighted average rate. Any exchange gain or loss, post any net income into there, any net assets into there. Okey-doke. And then I told the system which entities I want to consolidate. I enabled inter-entity auto-elimination. Now, if you do consolidations and you do inter-entity transactions, you'll know how much of a pain intercompany transactions can become when you need to eliminate them manually through Excel documents and things like that. Nightmare. But Intacct can manage all of them for you by just checking that box there. Okey-doke. Any elimination adjustments will be posted into this code. And I'm consolidating every dimension too, because then I can do consolidated dimensional reporting, which would be amazing. From there, I'm going to skip past journals and accounts to override and just show you this last page here, which is elimination accounts. On this page here, you can see all the due to and due from inter-entity GL codes. That's where all the intercompany transactions are stored. And of course, I'm eliminating those. I don't want to see them in my consolidated reporting. Once I'm happy with that, I can go ahead and run my consolidation. Running one is real simple. All you do is you select the book you want to consolidate. So if I said I want to consolidate my global GBP, I'm going to consolidate the global locations book instead because it's a bit more up to date. You would select the month you want to consolidate, click on the consolidate button. It tells you it's going to drop you an email once it's done. Press OK. And it'll start running that consolidation. So you can see that it's blue, it's in progress. You just need to give it a few minutes and then it will be done. All right. I'm going to presume it's done. And once it is done, you can actually go and run any report you need in the system in a consolidated format. So what I've done already is I've pre-built some consolidated reports in the system, which I've just got the email there to let me know it's done. But I've pre-built some reports in the system which are consolidated already. But if I didn't want to use those and I wanted to use a different one, so I could run any of them using my consolidated function. So if I press profit and loss by location, this is not a consolidated report. I should take that filter out. I could say, right, run this, but instead of running it on the accrual book, run it based on my consolidated book, right? And run it as of today. Press OK. And that financial report in the system has now immediately become a consolidated report instead, just by changing one drop down. All right. And we can see all of our different entities that have transactions in them and a consolidated figure at the end there. Okie doke. So real simple, real straightforward to run consolidations in the system. All inter-entity transactions get eliminated, which is amazing. And yeah, you can just crack on. You can schedule those out from the system as well if you want. So you can have the system run the consolidation and then actually get the system to run the report for you and then set up a schedule and say, right, I want you to start running it from today. Repeat it every 1 month at the end of the month and email it out to so on and so on person in with a certain subject and send it in an Excel format or a CSV format and CC me in. Okay, or you could choose to store it in Intacct and people can go in there and access it, or you could choose to store it in a cloud location like a SharePoint or a Google folder. Again, completely up to you what you wanted to do. All right. So real nice way of having the system do a lot of the heavy lifting for you, and you can just look at the reports, the important bit at the end to see the bits that actually matter. Okie doke. Cool. So the final thing I want to show you guys is on cash management and to do with bank feeds and bank recs and things like that. Now, of course, Intacct has bank feed connections available for pretty much any bank in the world. So we can connect your actual bank account into Intacct and get your transactions flowing in live into the system. And what that means is your reconciliation process becomes incredibly streamlined and real quick and real fast. Now, of course, this is a test system, so I don't have a real feed connected, but I do have a dummy feed which we can look at just to see how it works. And we'll do it from a bank reconciliation window. So I'm just going to jump into this demo bank, press continue. And you guys will have to forgive me. This bank's in an awful condition, minus 23 million, hasn't been reconciled in a long time. But nonetheless, we can see our Intacct Bank tab and we can see our bank tab here. This is basically mimicking what a live feed would look like. Now, when it comes to reconciliations, real simple. It's literally a case of you see your feed. I can see there that I've got Georgia Power Company have credited my account for £1,900. I could press match on that. It would show me all the Intacct transactions. I find the corresponding one, which is their Georgia Power Company. Click on that, make sure the remaining to match is 0, press match, and it'll take the 2 off the list, right? Real simple. To scale this up a bit, Intacct has something called bank rules, where we can basically say, if a transaction comes through where the payee and the amount and the date are the same in the feed as they are in my Intacct bank, match them together for me. So again, the idea is that when you get into your rec at the end of the week or at the end of the month, all the transactions have already been matched based on the rules, and all you've got to do is validate them. And then once you're ready, you can hit reconcile and that's it done. Okie doke. So what traditionally is 4-day process to reconcile bank accounts turns into literally a few minutes at the end of a month just to fire through and make sure you've got everything you need. Okie doke. Brilliant. All right. So that was pretty much everything I wanted to show you guys today on our demo. Yeah, if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them into the chat. Otherwise, I'll hand back over to yourself, Rory.
Yeah, thanks, Hamza. Well, we got the first question. Is there a forecasting function? And the follow-up question also asks, how does the system help with forecasting?
So forecasting is always a real tricky subject when it comes to finance systems, because again, forecasts are dependent on the company, how you want to forecast based on what do you want the system to tell you, the forecast of upcoming money you can expect to receive or forecasted budgets, etc., and things like that. And I like to be really transparent and say that Intacct it is not designed for forecasting. So there's no real forecasting capabilities within Intacct. However, having said that, if you're looking at Intacct, you'll probably know that there is an Intacct marketplace, which is basically like the app store for Intacct. And on there is countless amounts of partners who do incredible things like forecasting. So you've got the likes of Martus, who are really good for forecasting as well. And all of those applications have direct integrations with Intacct. So if anything, I would say that's where you need to be looking if you want things like forecasting in the system. Similarly with things like budgeting as well, there is a budgets feature in Intacct, which I know that question's just been asked there, so I'll pick that up. There is a budget feature in Intacct, so there is a budget repository where you can actually upload a budget into the system and then use those budgets to compare against your P&Ls, balance sheets, etc., and utilize them in the system. So yes, there is a yearly budget feature in that.
Thank you, Hamza. Another question. Does the deferred revenue drive forecasting as well? That's the first question.
Deferred revenue drive forecasting. I mean, again, it depends on how you're looking at it. So if you are going to use the revenue recognition module, you can absolutely, there's a dashboard here, which you can utilize called the Manage Revenue Schedules dashboard. And this can help you see upcoming or unposted revenue amounts or revenues that are to be posted. So you could utilize this to see upcoming or the money you can expect to recognize in a certain period. That might be something you could absolutely do. But again, it really depends on your specific company's requirements, and that might be something we have a wider discussion with you on. So again, probably touch base with Rory on that and maybe get a bespoke demo booked in for that.
Yeah, thank you, Hamza. And then just a follow-up question to one of the questions around budgeting, upload or input module. So I'm assuming is how our budget sort of into
You
Intact.
you could do both, absolutely. Yeah, so you could do both. You can type them into the system if you'd like. So you can click on add and add a new budget in there and just manually add in details about the budgets yourself, or you could upload it using an import template. It's both is possible.
Can we customize it for budget holders?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So we always get this, we always get these requirements when it comes to implementation. So people want their budget holders to be able to get into the system and only see what's relevant to their budget, which you can absolutely do. So what you can do with that is on your user setup in the system there, each user you can allocate them to a certain budget or a certain department, as I would usually refer to it. So within the user, you've got here the user departments. So you could allocate to them pardon me, the departments that they're looking at or the area of the budget they're looking at. So we could say, right, you're going to look at sales and services, and then when they look at these reports, they only see those areas of the system.
Yeah, thanks, Hamza. And just to follow up to that question is to input. So can budget holders input their own budgets? Again, if I'm following
But
the line of
they could
questioning
do,
here.
yeah, absolutely could do, yeah. I mean, if it's what I think it means in terms of just getting them in, then yes, absolutely they could do. Again, it just depends on the type of user they are. So as long as they have the right user permissions, they can absolutely do that, yeah.
I think just to sort of expand on what Hamza was talking about earlier on the forecasting. So one of the Martis, which is the sort of the go-to solution, at least the one that we would recommend, aside from it having forecasting functions for cash flow and sort of balance sheet, it does have a budgeting tool or aspect to it where you can create sort of planning and what if scenarios and sort of actually allow, heads of departments or, budget holders to be able to, input and change their budget. So that's another way of doing it if you were to go down that route, of course. Well, I mean, with that in mind, guys, I mean, thank you very much for your time. Sort of a whistle stop tour of Intact, and just sort of showcasing what it can do from a financials sort of perspective. But as I said, there's a lot more that we can really sort of show what Intact can provide for you. We will be in touch, but do feel free to reach out to us, either myself. I know a few of you have been in touch with Graham, who's on the call with us today. So you can also sort of direct your questions to him. But until then, enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. Speak to you all soon. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.